Othering Podcast explores the world of marginalized communities with a focus on the disabled and LGBTQ+. In our discussions, we will provide a platform for our guests to advocate and share their stories. By delving deep into their difficulties and successes, we will explore the changes necessary to improve lives everywhere. Thank you for joining us, and welcome to the Othering Podcast with Mike and Dory. All right, today we are talking to Katie. She is a secondary school computing teacher in Cheshire, UK. She's originally from Yorkshire. She has tendonitis in her right wrist since the age of 12. I believe it's called the Quervain, the syndrome. And she is also the author and creator of the Chronic Painicles online magazine, which is really neat, and I highly recommend you check it out. We will talk more about that later in the episode. So, welcome, Katie. It's great to meet you.
Hi.
Hello, how are you?
I'm good.
Mike started a little bit with your journey with the Quervains. Could you kind of explain how that happened and how your journey was discovering that you had it?
Yeah, so I hairline fractured my wrist when I was about 11, 12 by roller skating with my Girl Guides group at the time. And I fell awkwardly and, like I say, hairline fractured my wrist. But it wasn't until 6 months later. By that point, I'd started high school, secondary school, whatever you want to call it. And obviously there's more writing compared to the primary school. And that's when my wrist started flaring up again. And it felt like I'd re-broke it, but I hadn't done anything to it. So I remember going to the GP and was like, look, my wrist is really aching. It's swelling up. It's, heating up. I haven't done anything to break it, so I'm not going to the A&E emergency department. What is it? And because I was 12, they were like, we think it's tendonitis, but because you are 12, we don't want to officially diagnose it. And I was like, right, okay, great, thanks for this. And that's been the picture ever since. So I was back and forth from the GP to the hospital, seeing hand and wrist specialists. I was that kid that was always in and out of school, having appointments because I didn't know what the hell was going on. And then I turned 16 and I went to the GP and was like, I kind of didn't realise he'd said this at 12 when I was 12, but I turned 16 and I'd done some research myself. And I went to him and I was like, is it this? And he was like, yeah, I think I diagnosed you with this when you were 12, but I didn't want to say it at the time. I was like, right, okay, great. So yeah, then I turned 16. They offered me steroid injections because they didn't want to give it me prior to that because obviously you're a child still. Mm-hmm. They didn't really work. I had 3. The third one was done by guided ultrasounds, try and get in the right spot. Didn't work. And then I turned 18 and they were like, we hold our hands up. We can't do anything else for you. Do you want the surgery? So I was like, fine, whatever, if it's going to help me. Bear in mind, I was 12 at the time they first thought about it. This was now 18, so it'd been 6 years. So yeah, I had the surgery just before I headed off to uni. And yeah, it helped a bit, the surgery, but it still affects me now. It's still there, it still twinges. And for some bizarre reason, this past year, it's felt like I'm back at square one again. So I've gone, thankfully, unthankfully, I don't know. I've moved areas since, because I've been at uni, I've got myself my first job, I've had my second job now. So I'm in a different area of the UK to where I was. So right. Now it's a new person looking at my wrist. And I'm like, are you going to give me new ideas, new suggestions? So I've seen a new orthopaedic person, and he has since sent me for an MRI scan, which I had on Tuesday. Mm-hmm. Obviously, I'm still awaiting the results. It takes forever to get any sort of results. But we shall see if it is more damage to my wrist, or he seems to think I might have developed hypersensitivity now because it has been so long.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Are they worried that it might be like a CRPS type of injury?
I don't think they know, to be honest. This orthopaedic I saw at the end of March was like, we'll send you for the MRI at first and then we'll see what we're dealing with, really. But he thinks it could either be more tendon damage because it's been so long, mm-hmm. or this hypersensitivity reaction because I said it's worse in the cold weather.
Yes.
So he's like, right, maybe you've gained some sort of thing in that area. And I'm like, okay, great, thanks.
So when you
I'm totally not 24. I've totally not had this since I was 12. This is now half of my
yeah,
life.
Yes.
when you were 12, I'm assuming your parents were there with you at the doctor appointment.
Yeah, my mum
Talking
was.
talking to them now, do they remember them saying anything about it, or did they never say it just because you were too young and figured you didn't want to hear it?
I mean, my mum's sort of been with me through it. When I was back at home, she'd be there helping me cut my food up because I'd struggle. She'd wash my hair for
Right.
me. Because obviously she was there when I broke my wrist at first. So when this started flaring up, she thought it was just going to be another sort of few weeks helping me do the things she'd helped me when I broke it.
Right.
Not realising it'd be a 12-year stint.
Yeah. 12-year
Um,
journey.
And it's still ongoing.
So the doctor didn't really tell your mom anything different than what you heard?
No,
No?
I mean,
Okay.
I kind of like to say I'm quite not. I don't want to say smart, but like I'm quite mature for the age I was.
Right. But I know
So, like,
sometimes doctors like to treat children differently than adults, and I was wondering if
Yeah.
maybe that was the case.
Yeah,
No,
sometimes.
I don't. I think because I was 12, they thought it might not be it. They thought that it might just. I don't know what they were thinking, to be honest. But it was when I was when I was 16, and I was like, "Is it this?" And they're like, "We kind of mentioned it in the notes back in when you were 12." And I was like, "Well, thanks for telling me," because
Yeah. Well, I had something similar. I'm 47 now, and I just happened to go through my chart, and I found out that I have scoliosis, but nobody bothered to tell me or my parents or anything because I guess they figured since it was mild, it wasn't worth mentioning. But it's
no,
like I would like to know, even if it is super mild, but not that it matches tendonitis or Quervain's. Just I would think that doctors would like to make sure that we know that they said this diagnosis or something, because it can change a whole lot of other things that you do going forward. Like
and
maybe, go ahead.
I was about to say just a bit, especially because it's my writing wrist as well. It's my dominant hand, so like I'm obviously using it, to write and do. You've got everyone's got a dominant hand, but
Right.
obviously this is my like affected wrist, and it's just like if I'm writing, if I'm even typing on my phone, I'm gonna affect it more because it's my dominant wrist. If it was my other one, I'd be probably less bothered by it.
Right.
But
It
my
makes
dominant
sense that
at
they
the
would
end of the
try
day.
to make sure, since it is your dominant hand, that it works. And I mean,
Exactly.
And I'm guessing you use it a lot more because you teach computing. I know carpal tunnel is
Yeah.
common because of computing and the way you hold the mouse or whatever. So I'm sure that doesn't help at all.
I was always that kid in school. I'm. To be fair, I am better typing than I am handwriting. Because when I start handwriting, it's neat at first. Because I remember when I was like early on in my journey, I was like 13, 14. They sent me to occupational health therapy, and they did me a handwriting test. And they noticed that it was very neat at first, but then by the time I got to the bottom of the page, it was like a reception kid's like really scribbly writing because my wrist was just getting so tired. So they recommended I use the laptop at school for most subjects. Obviously, maths and science were a bit more difficult, but like say English and history, they'd be like, use a laptop if you can. So I was always that kid at the back of the classroom plugged into a laptop trying to type. But yeah, like you say, I am now a computing teacher. I've gone through, high school, sixth form, uni. I went and did a computing degree. Thankfully, I like computers. So, the fact that I was told to use a laptop, I was like, yes, please. Like I say, I went and did a computing degree at uni. And then I went and did my teacher training. And like I say, I teach now. But to be fair, both schools, I've been in 2 different schools to do my last 2 years. And both schools have been very good in terms of giving me like ergonomic devices. So my last school, because they used desktop PCs, they gave me like a foldable keyboard so I could adjust it,
oh wow.
and rests and stuff. And my new school, they use laptops instead of desktops, so they've given me a vertical mouse to connect to that way. So both schools have been very good in terms of adapting what I need.
That's good, because sometimes employers aren't very good at meeting people's needs for like accessibility or even adapting just little things like the type of vertical mouse that you were talking about. Sometimes they don't even bother with giving you that or even telling you that that's available, and
No.
you have to kind of navigate it on your own. So I'm glad that they were able and willing to kind
I
of
mean,
help you with
yeah,
that.
in my as I say, I'm in 2 different schools in the past 2 years. So as I was starting my current school last year, I had to go through an occupational health thing, and obviously I brought this up, and they're like, "What do you need for to do your job?" Because obviously you're doing a computing teaching job, and I'm like, anything ergonomic, anything, keyboard, mouse, wrist rests, I need that. And I'm like, right, okay. So within the first couple of weeks of me starting, I'd got the IT lot to get me a vertical mouse. I declined the keyboard at my current school because of the laptop more than anything. I didn't want to sort of have that with the laptop, where my old school I could just replace the keyboard with the one that was there and
Right.
switch it around. But yeah, different circumstances. But yeah, it's
So,
Go ahead.
what exactly was the surgery? Were they fixing the tendons specifically, or how did that
you
work?
I say how weird do you want me to go, but it's the tendon of your thumb to your wrist, and you've got a sheath there that protects the sort of bending of your wrist. And it's the sheath that gets irritated if it gets used too much, well, even now, I don't have to do a thing and it aches because it's been so long. But in reality, it's the sheath that's going to irritated. And in the surgery, they slice that sheath open and widen it. So then in theory, it shouldn't irritate you. In theory. And now, I had the surgery, in 2019, and I'm still, albeit, I would say it's slightly better. But yeah, I mean, the last year has been really challenging. Especially towards the end of the December into January, for some reason it started really flaring up again. I kept going to the GP. I was like, look, I feel like back at square one, pre-surgery. I was told when I had the surgery, albeit it wouldn't be 100%, but I should feel better. But they also did say it could develop into arthritis as well because it's been so long.
Oh,
So I had to go to the
yay.
GP and be like, look, is it now tendonitis or is it now developing into arthritis? Why am I back in so much pain again? So they sent me to an x-ray. That came back clear. And then in early Jan, we had such bizarre snowstorms for the UK, which obviously then froze over and iced over. And I went to school. Well, we came back after Christmas break. The first day was an inset training day. And then the second day I was heading back into work. It was the first day with the kids back in. I went to the local corner shop to grab my lunch and slipped on the ice that had developed overnight.
Oh no.
And bashed my already bad wrist onto the ice.
Oh,
And I was like, what a fantastic way to start the year, because it was the 6th of Jan. And the fact that it was my first proper day back at work, because let's face it, us teachers never count training days as days of work. So I rang my GP. I was like, look, I've just bashed my wrist. They obviously know the whole debacle I've had. I was like, do I need to go to A&E? Do I need to come and see you guys? Bear in mind, I'm a teacher, so I need to go and put emergency cover in place because I can't teach. I'm in pain. And they're like, oh, well, go to the A&E. And it turned out I had really badly sprained my wrist. So I was then signed off for work for 5 weeks because I'd have my tendonitis and the sprain in the same wrist. And obviously being a computing teacher with a really bad wrist already is difficult, but 2 in 1.
That's
Yeah.
you skipped the trifecta and went to the quadfecta type of thing and doubled your pain. And I understand that because when I was teaching, I decided to trip on, it was a curb and it was kind of higher than the grass was. And I was walking on the grass, tripped on the curb, and decided to sprain my knee on one leg and my ankle on the other. So it's always, which is why I have CRPS now. So I understand that pain. How has the pain for you affected your mental health?
To be fair, when it first started, I was probably too young to sort of realise it was affecting me mentally, but the past few months after the sprain and the tendonitis, it hit me hard. So yeah, they were like, oh, we'll have to send you back to the orthopaedics and get them to look at it and maybe send you for more physio. And I'm like, I never had physio in the first place after surgery, so I think that's where the fault is at as well. Because even I remember having my surgery, my mum like, "You're not giving her physio," and they're like, "No, she doesn't need it." I was like, "What?"
Yeah, that's weird.
Yeah, like I get it, it's a minor, it's deemed as a minor surgery, but still, if you have any type of surgery, surely you need some sort of like rehabilitation work
I would have
on it.
thought so.
But no, I got nothing after my surgery, so maybe that's probably why I'm still in the state I'm in. I don't know at this point, but after my sprain, I went back to the GP because my arthritis X-ray came back clear. So I was like, "Look, I've gone and sprained it. My arthritis X-rays come back clear. Why am I in so much pain? I get I've sprained it, but like still." And that's when they sent me back to the orthopedics. And like I say, I'm in a new area compared to last time, so I was like a bit hopeful the fact that it's a new brain to the situation, and be like, right, what can we consider? And to be fair, this I went and saw the orthopedics in March, and he was like, "Have you ever had an MRI scan on it?" I was like, "No, I haven't. You are the first person to suggest such thing." So like I said, I had that last Tuesday. I'm still awaiting the results, obviously, but maybe he's sprung a cord on something, and we'll see what they find out. Because
Is another surgery a possibility?
he did say if it's more tendon damage, then you're probably looking at more surgery. I was like,
Jeez.
okay.
And the more surgery, I would think that would affect your usability of your hand even more.
Yeah, I've kind of already considered, going into like supply teaching next year. So then if I do end up having surgery, then I'm not dropping like a year 11 class, the end of high school before the major exams. That's kind of what my thinking is now. We're heading towards the end of this academic year. I'm already not staying at my current school because of all this that's happened in the past few months. I was just like, I don't want to be given, a GCSE class and have to drop them last minute.
Yeah.
You're a teacher, you've got to think of the kids, albeit you've got to think about yourself, but you've got to think about them as well. And it's like, if I'm away for however many weeks, then it's not good for them. So I think if I go into supply, obviously, it's not stable income, but, I'm already thinking of moving back closer to family anyways. It's been in my mind the last few weeks and months, been like, right, what are my actual plans? Because I was on a temporary contract anyways. I had to consider, do I apply for the job again? I didn't really want to, just because of all this. I mean, there's other things as well. There's family circumstances as well. But it was mainly this. It's like, what if I went away and had more surgery?
Right. And you definitely need your support group right there with you, because any kind of surgery is hard and difficult on the body, even if it's, just a routine surgery. And I would think that having to go into your hand again and, mess around with your nerves and your tendons, that's a huge surgery, and you need all of the care and help that possible, so that because I would think that would also contribute to mental health stability, kind of like easing some of that burden that you're going to feel as well. I don't want to assume, but like when going through surgery, it's scary enough, and having people around that care about you and help you and understand makes a huge difference, at least for me. And I would think that would kind of be the same for most people.
Yeah, so I've, like I said, this past few months have hit me mentally as well, because I was working it out. It's obviously like half of my life I've had this. And just was like, I don't think it's really hit me mentally until this point. I was just like, I'm fed up with this. So yeah, my current thinking is go back home to Yorkshire. Albeit, yes, I'll lose my sort of personal space, which I do quite like. But, there's obviously family circumstances as well, because not to get too deep, but my grandma's just been diagnosed with dementia as well. So, I kind of want to be around that sort of, because, I'm close with my grandparents. When I go home for Christmas and holidays, I go to my grandparents because I don't get on with my mum's partner really well. So, yeah, the fact that my grandma's now in another situation, I'm like, right, I think this is my time to go back home to Yorkshire, sort myself out, be with her, Yeah, so that's my current thinking for September.
And I mean, we've dealt with dementia. Mike's grandmother, both grandmothers actually, passed away from it. So, being there for their lucid moments is really good and nice, and it's healing for us. It was nice to be around them for that, and so we understand that.
Yeah.
And at the same time, it also heals you because you get to be there for the help that you need.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I'm thinking of my granddad as well, because they've been together for 50 years. She's just been put in a care home, and he's like in the house alone. And I'm like,
yeah.
you know what, Granddad, you can help me. I can help you.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's rough.
That is rough, but it's mutually beneficial for both of you then, because then he's not alone. Because I would imagine seeing your partner going down like that is difficult. I mean, I don't have dementia, but Mike has mentioned before how it's hard for him to watch me kind of go downhill physically. So I would imagine that it's a big relief to be there for your grandpa and him being able to be there for you to help each other.
I mean, I was over at Christmas, man. I was over during the Easter holidays, and it was the first proper time I've been over since my grandma got taken into the care home. And, albeit he looks better for her being in the care home because he'd been taking care of her for so long because her mobility's not there either. I could tell he was a bit, lost in the house. Where is everything, where is, my grandma, where is things happening? And I think me being there gave him a bit of more... Well, it was someone to talk to at the end of the day. He's got 4 walls and a cat, but the cat's not really talking to him.
Yeah, if the cat is talking, that's a whole other episode.
Exactly. I mean, she natters for food at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, but that's about it.
Oh, that's it. That's nice. Our one cat is constantly yelling at us throughout the day for food. You'd think we never even fed her ever.
So back to your wrist, and maybe this is...
I mean, kind of...
Yes, we do that, and that's fine.
And maybe this is kind of an ignorant question, but I'm familiar with how carpal tunnel feels, and even, I think it's ulnar tunnel or something like that. It's from the elbow. Do you get that, your hand falls asleep, tingly feeling in your hand from this, or is it more of almost a muscular type of pain?
It varies. So sometimes I get achy pains, especially at night when I've used it so much, and I just get into bed and it's like, ping, here's an ache pain.
Yep.
Sometimes I just feel burning. I don't know why. Just sensitive there. I do get some finger tingles sometimes if I've been leaning on it or whatever. Because within my dominant hand, sometimes I'm leant on the train and I'm like this, not thinking, and I'm like, oh.
Yeah.
Hang on. What am I doing? Yeah. Albeit I've had it for 12 years, but things still don't click in my brain,
It's your body, and you're used to having it, even though you may be used to the pain or used to having to do certain things a certain way. I would think that instinctually you're going to want to do what you used to be able to do, even if it's been 12 years. It doesn't matter how many years it is. Sometimes you'll find you're going to try and do something that you used to be able to do.
But yeah, so I get weird various pains. It's mostly down the thumb side of my wrist because obviously that's where the issue is. But
Right.
I do get tingly fingers sometimes, albeit not as often. It's more the ache that's getting me at the moment. It's just constantly aching, and I don't know why. Well, I do know why. But
Yeah.
So do you try to use your left hand a lot? I mean, your right hand is obviously the affected one, and it sounds like you're right-handed.
Yeah, my granddad keeps telling me I need to learn how to write left-handed, and I was like, no.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I can't do anything with my left hand.
I've before I was told to use a laptop at school, they kept sort of saying, "Oh, write with your left hand" or whatever. So I kept trying, and I remember one of my science books, I wrote my name on the front, and it was a reception kid's writing, a 4-year-old's writing, and they're like, yeah, you're not writing with your left hand. I was like, I didn't want to anyways, you told me to.
Yeah. No, I don't understand it because I can kind of I have to use my right hand for everything but writing. So I don't quite understand the lack of being able to use both hands.
I mean, I've kind of adapted in terms of eating a bit because obviously I've been alone living alone for the past, well, since I left my home at 18 for uni. So I've kind of adapted like eating with my left hand, but writing's still a no-go situation. It's just like, either do you want really scruffy right-handed writing, or do you want really preschool writing with my left hand?
Yeah, I call it serial killer writing.
Yeah, or just give me a laptop or something to type it, and I'll print it out later. You can have it that way.
What about like just normal routine stuff like getting ready? And I know in your magazine you talk about simple things like brushing your hair can be more difficult because it's your dominant hand.
Yeah, like when I was at home, I used to be always at my mum being like, "Can you brush my hair for me? I'm struggling."
Yeah.
Albeit, like I said, I've been out of the house since I was 18, so I've been sort of left-handed instead of right-handed. When I'm in the shower, sort of squeeze with my shampoo with my elbow instead of with my actual hand, because it's just that gripping effect. I've got no, like, it's very weak. Like, I had a couple of physio appointments given by my school. When I went through my sprain, they were like, "Do you want to go through the private health thing we have?" I was like, "Sure, okay, if you're gonna, give me it, fine." So I had a couple of private physios through my school, and he was like telling me to grip his hand and stuff. He was like, "Yeah, you've got nothing in there, have you?" I was like, "No."
Wow.
Thanks for pointing out the obvious, but no, I do not.
Yeah, I gotta love it when they point out the obvious. Oh, by the way, your hands hurt. No kidding. I never would have gotten that. Who knew? Is that why it feels weird and hurts or something? So I was reading your magazine earlier, and I loved your pictures in there. And you mentioned not only mental exhaustion, but you also kind of talked about a little bit about stigma. Have you had any stigma with having your hand on sometimes visibly seen, because you have, like right now, you have on your wrist brace?
Yeah.
And have you also had issues where when you don't have it on, that people are like, "Oh, well, you can do this now because you don't have that on"?
I've got to say, especially since the sprain, I've not had it off because it just feels so weak without it. Albeit when the kids first noticed it, they're like, "Oh, why are you wearing a glove?" And it's just like, because I've got a dodgy wrist that's been as long, Like, I was talking to the younger lots of I'm obviously secondary school, high school, so I was talking to the year 7s about it, like the 11, 12-year-olds, and I was like, "How old are you?" And they're like, 12. And I'm like, "Well, so I've had this wrist condition for the length you've been alive." So, yeah, there we go. Which scares the living daylights out of them, because they're like, "Oh." And I'm like, yeah. So, yeah, the kids... Albeit I think they're kind of used to it now because it's been a while, but at first they're like, "What? Why are you wearing it?" And I'm like, "Well, just because I've got a bad wrist," especially for the younger lot who's been as long as you've been living. Albeit I teach the younger lot, so I can have a little bit of a joke about their age and how long I've had it, but I don't think I could get away with it with the 18-year-olds that, because it's a sixth form, there's a sixth form as well. Albeit I don't teach them. Yeah, the year 7s can have a little bit of a joke with it. But it's mostly the fact that the condition always gets like lumped together with carpal tunnel, repetitive strain, that sort of thing, and it's like, "Well, you shouldn't use your phone so often." And it's like, well, that's not the issue we've got. And I mean, like I say, back in December, pre my sprain, pre the fall, even colleagues were like, "Why are you going to the doctors about it?" And I'm like, "I've been going to the doctors for the past 12 years about it. It's not just something that's happened overnight. It's something now." I think it's the fact that, if I didn't wear the sprain, it would be invisible. And it's like, it's my dominant hand. So, like, I'm still having to use it.
Right.
And they're like, "Well, you're fine then." And it's like, I'm using it because it's my dominant hand and I'm incapable with my left hand, as proven by my handwriting. So, yeah, there's a lot of sort of just questions more than anything. It's like, "Why are you sorting it out now?" And I'm like, "I'm not sorting it out now. I've been trying to sort it out 12 years ago. Right. You tell me what I'm trying to do, because I don't quite know what I'm trying to do either."
And I would think that that's frustrating because the constant, well,
Repeated.
why are you, needing to go here, or why can't you just be happy with it right now? And yeah, you mentioned the fact that it keeps getting lumped into carpal tunnel and various things like that. So I know the difference because I actually looked it up. But can you explain what the difference is between what you have versus carpal tunnel?
Sorry. So this is more visual based, so I know it's only audio, but so tendonitis affects the thumb and the tendon down that side. I believe from research of carpal tunnel, it's the nerve down the centre of your wrist. So it's different position. Albeit I think there's similar different, similar like aches and pains, but it's a different condition altogether. It's different nerves, different areas. Yeah, I don't personally. Like I said, I don't really know much about carpal tunnel, but there's been I've researched it a little bit because people is it not just this? I'm like, no, it's not. That's why I'm saying it's tendonitis, not carpal tunnel.
Yeah.
Yes. Because carpal tunnel does deal with the nerves, and it's squeezing the nerves, it's pinching the
Yeah.
nerves. Whereas yours is the tendons are affected and completely. And like I was reading that it can go up to your elbow. Has that happened where it goes up to your elbow, or is it just staying in your wrist?
I do get sort of pains every now and then across down the arm. I don't know whether it's weird, but sometimes I do get up the shoulder now. But I think that's due to the time I've had it now. Definitely noticed it when I'm sometimes just laid in bed, and I think when your body's all relaxed and all that, it's just then it's like ping, have this pain just before you go to sleep, and it's like,
Yep.
You wanted to sleep? What?
yeah,
How dare you?
yeah. I'm kind of fed up of sort of trying to say it's not carpal tunnel, it's
Yeah.
not repetitive strain. It's albeit yes, they affect the wrist, yes, they affect the hand, but they're separate.
Yeah, they're very different, completely different. Because again, one is dealing with nerves and the other one is dealing with tendons, which are two different things within the body that allow you to move. And of course, feel things. And unfortunately, tendons being thicker and being inflamed or ripped or things like that will cause more pain than nerves can sometimes.
Yep.
And it's no fun at all.
Nope.
No, any chronic pain is no fun.
No.
And you keep mentioning it's worse at night. I've noticed Dory's kind of the same way. And I kind of wonder if that's just you're not focused on anything. So that pain just kind of pops in the front of your brain. And again, like you said earlier, it's sore from the day, from everything you've been doing.
I mean, like I said, I've moved school for the past couple of years. So when I was in my old school, I was like 5 minutes up the road. So I wasn't traveling as much. But in my new school, I'm like 20 minutes on a train. So the mornings have been interesting the past year or so while I've been in my new school. Well, the school I'm now leaving, but the school that I'm currently at, I've noticed the mornings have been a bit interesting as well now. Albeit not as like the nights have been, but I've had one of those wheat bags on my desk to heat it up in the morning because the cold weather, as I say, affects it. So obviously when I'm getting up at 6:30 in the morning to try and get the train, I've been getting into work a bit early, so I've got time to heat the wheat bag in the microwave in the staff room and then be like, right, let's wrap it round. And yeah, so the morning, albeit yes, it is worse at night, but the mornings have been interesting the last few months.
Yeah, because
Wow.
cold affects me greatly. Heat does too. Like if it gets too hot, I have to be that perfect temperature of the 70s. That's the only time when, for me, it's not excruciating or annoying. Do you find that the more mild temperatures like 60s, 70s kind of help you?
Pre-surgery, I would have said yes, but we've just had the most incredible heat wave for the UK over here for the past week, and I'm still in pain, so
It doesn't matter. It always is going to hurt.
I mean, I've noticed it when we have those days where it's warm, like cold and warm, it affects. But like I say, we've just had like this absolute, glorious sunshine in the UK this past week. I'm still taking paracetamol at lunchtime, and it's just like, why? I would say cold affects me more, But I think I posted on my Instagram the other day, like, we've got a warmer weather, but it's still, it doesn't affect me as much, but it still affects me.
Yeah, but pain seems to love to go with extremes, weather extremes, and Mother Nature is not always friendly to us.
No.
As they say, she can be a bitch, especially to us that have chronic pain. And
Yep.
another thing I wanted to kind of touch on, you mentioned that you have chronic pain. You've said, and I kind of want to just clarify this for our listeners, you've had it for 12 years. And chronic pain, by definition, is any pain that you have had for at least 6 months. And when you think in those terms, does it kind of, I guess you could say, like, upset you, the fact that it's chronic pain is 6 months, but yet you've been struggling to get answers and help for 12 years? Does that kind of, I guess you could say, affect your mental health, you think?
Definitely. Like the past month, this first half of this year, when with the sprain, with the tendonitis, this year I have to say I was given antidepressants because of it. Whether that's because of my grandma as well, that was happening at the same time. Like everything just merged into one at the beginning of the year, and I was in an absolute state. So the doctor was giving me antidepressants because they're like, how the hell are you coping with this? And I was like, good question. I don't know.
Yeah. That's a lot.
Yeah.
And they were like, and especially because, like I said, I'm in a new area, so like the different GPs dealing with me, and they're like, you've had this for 12 years? I was like, yeah. Why do you think I'm like fed up with it? It's more the longevity of it. It's like, how and why have I had it for 12 years? From the most basic break, it was literally a hairline fracture 12 years ago after roller skating. Why am I now sat here 24 just having my first MRI scan in 12 years, which
Yeah,
I find
that doesn't
bizarre
make
as well.
sense.
It's just, why are things always taking its time? Why? Yeah, yes, I'm 24, but I had this when I was 12. Like,
Age doesn't really make a difference. I mean, you could be 5, you could be, in your case, you were 12, and pain doesn't make a difference. Have you ever gotten that, but you're so young?
yes.
Yeah.
And especially because this type of tendonitis is also deemed as the mother's pain, because it's when it's deemed for new mothers when they're picking up the new babies, and that's when that's normally when it springs, and it's just like, you're too young to get this because I'm 24. I'm not a mother. I don't have a kid. And it's just like, why have you got this? And it's like,
Yeah.
I do. It's not just deemed for mothers. It's everybody could get it. But yeah, it's just trying to break that stereotype as well.
Yeah.
It's just like,
And I would imagine that that's a part of the stigma is just, well, you're only 24 type of thing, but pain doesn't care how old you are or how young you are.
No.
If it's going to happen, it's going to happen. And saying, but you're only 24, so it shouldn't bother you that much, or you're so young that you don't even have kids, so how could you possibly have that, is, I would think, degrading
yeah.
and dismissive. Because again, it doesn't matter how old you are. I'm 47, and I'm supposed to be in the prime of my life dealing with, middle age and all that silly stuff of...
I'm not sure 40s is prime. By any stretch.
Shut up.
I would say the 20s is a prime.
40s. 40s is prime too. Because you're only as old as you feel. But so either way, whenever you decide your prime is, that it doesn't matter and you shouldn't be dismissed regardless. And I hate the fact that we all get dismissed with our pain. I mean, like, Mike's got awful neck pain since he had a car accident in 2020. Yeah. And the year of hell for everyone. And his isn't necessarily taken seriously either, which is...
Because they don't see anything on the testing.
Yeah.
So it must not be there, right?
Oh, of course.
Well, that's what when the orthopedics was like, have you been for an MRI scan? I was like, no. And they're like, I was like, well, I've been for a few x-rays recently because I had the one for the arthritis test and then I had another one recently because of the sprain. And he was like, well, why are they sending you for x-rays? Because x-rays don't pick up tendons.
Right.
And it's like, I was like, you tell me this.
Wow.
You tell me why I've been sent for x-rays. Tell me why you're the first person to suggest an MRI scan.
Yeah, that doesn't make sense. I mean, we go to doctors and hospitals for their expertise, at least. And, we all understand that you're not going to know everything as a doctor. You can't possibly know every disease out there. There's over 7,000 unique ones. So add that to the ones that everybody knows, that it's impossible.
Yeah.
But if you know that tendons don't show up on x-rays, why in the hell are you sending people for x-rays on tendons?
When he first said that, I was like, well, I didn't. To be fair, I didn't realize X-rays didn't pick up tendons. But when he said that, I was like, what?
Yeah, but But the thing is that we're not supposed to have to know these things.
Oh,
Yeah,
We shouldn't have to
what
know
they're
that.
for.
Yeah, that's what they're for. And so the fact that it took this doctor to say, but this won't show up on a normal x-ray. It's like, wait a minute, what? And I like want to face palm.
like, but like I say, I went home to my grandparents. Well, I went in to see my granddad and see my grandma. And now she's in the care home during Easter. And I said to my granddad, "Imagine if this MRI thing picks up something I've had for 12 years. Like, I'm gonna go livid. Not obviously not at the person that's in front of me, because he's the one who suggested the entire thing. But if there's something there that my tendon's been damaged for 5 years or whatever, then like, why is it being suggested now?"
And I'm wondering if it's because of your age. I hate to say that, and, being female and things like that because of those things, doctors are just like, well, she's young, so it can't be such and such, or, it can't be arthritis, or it can't be some sort of major damage to your tendon.
Yeah, I like I said, I generally don't know at this point, but I was in shock when that person was like, "Have you not had an MRI scan?" I was like, "No." Like,
Yeah, that's
what?
amazing.
Yeah, that is completely and utterly amazing that they did that, and they still practice medicine and not want to slap themselves. Like, just, it's amazing to me.
Getting back
Yeah.
kind of to the mental side of things, in one of our past interviews, our guest talked about they apologized all the time because they always had to ask for help, and they were trying hard not to apologize a lot. Do you find that because you need extra help, you do that and kind of feel guilty asking for help?
Yeah, like the day I sprained and fell over, I went into school, and one of my closest colleagues at the school, I'm in the Department of History and Geography and Computer Science, and one of the geography teachers was already in, and I was there in tears. I was just falling over, bashed my bad wrist. I was there trying to open a drink, and she's like, "Do you want any help?" I was like, "If you don't mind."
Yeah.
I don't like asking for help, but just because it's like awkward in my sense, it's just like, I think especially because in the school, it's like you're meant to be capable, you're meant to be able to do stuff. It's like, albeit the kids do like helping, the younger ones like helping going around school and stuff, but it's just like, "Oh, kids, can you go and pick the booklets up because they're too heavy for me to carry?" Yeah, it's just a bit like, shouldn't the teacher be collecting the booklets? And not really. And like I said, when I was a teenager and at home, my mum used to have to help me eat, wash, dress. So that was interesting. I remember being in sixth form and going to my English teacher, who knew me from year 7, so she knew me from like the start of this up to like 18, and I was like, how am I meant to go to uni? How am I meant to live in student digs, halls of residence, cook for myself, eat for myself, when I'm currently asking my mum to help? But this was just before I was offered the surgery, so then I was like, oh, maybe the surgery will help me, maybe I can go to uni after all. And like I say, I had the surgery just before I went to uni, so it was the June, and I went into uni in September, so I was like, right, maybe I could be a little bit more independent. I was already thinking, though, because I chose a uni about 90 minutes away from home, which doesn't sound a lot, but obviously if you're trying to live alone, it's, enough.
Yeah. Sure.
And I was trying to sort of debate, do I try and pick a closer uni, or do I, go to the closest uni, live at home, and just commute in? All that was going right through my head. It was like, what should I do? Like, I want to go to uni, but like the idea of uni in my sense is to be independent, to live alone, to have that first sort of early stages of adulthood. mess up if you have to because you're in the halls, etc. But I was a bit like, oh God, what do I do? I can't even eat for myself at this moment in time. I'm 17, 18. I'm getting my mother to cut up my food, and it's just like, am I 17 months or 17 years?
Yeah, and I think that mentality also comes down to the individualism that we're taught from a young age, and how you got to be able to do this yourself and do that yourself. So then it kind of pushes into the ableism that we're also taught, that, well, we don't ask for help. We're not supposed to ask for help because we're big adults and we're supposed to do it ourselves. And have you been have you been thinking about and working with the fact that a lot of what you said was kind of like internalized ableism?
It's more, especially with now I'm being a teacher, it's like, what are the kids thinking? Like, if I can't be independent, then what sort of role model am I showing them as such? I'm meant to be there at the front of the classroom. I'm meant to be, the most capable person in that room, and I'm not.
But that, I think,
and I remember,
shows them empathy.
Yeah, it like I say, now they've got it. Now they're used to me with the support on they do help. Like, especially my little form group. My form group are like the smallest form in the school, so like there's already quite close bonds there. Obviously I've inherited them from the teacher last year, and I was like, oh great, new form group, new kids. What are they gonna think? But there's a few kids in there that just want to help. Albeit they'll do it for like house points or whatever, and it's like, fine, I'll give you as many house points as I possibly can for helping. That's kids for you, isn't it? They always want something in return.
Of course.
It's like, fine, I'll stick 100 house points on if I have to. But if you go and collect my booklets for reprographics for me, I'll give you them.
But I like I was saying though, that kind of shows them empathy, and it shows that we can be vulnerable, and that just because we are adults doesn't mean that we don't need and shouldn't need help, and that so that kind of teaches your kids then, oh, okay, so when I get older, if I need help, then it's okay to ask for help, instead of perpetuating the whole, well, you're an adult now, you should do it yourself.
I remember sort of October, November time, when the cold weather was sort of kicking in. There's two of us that teach computing in my school. There's me that does more Key Stage 3 lower school, and my colleague does the sort of GCSE exam classes. And his year 13s had gone off on study leave for the mocks. So he popped into my lesson and he was like, saw me sat on my desk almost trying not to cry in front of this year 8 class I had. I was, I'd gone and heated my wrist pad up again. And he was like, do you want me to take the lesson? And I was like, sure, fine. And I think that showed the kids that actually it is okay to sort of, albeit he was free, thankfully.
Yeah.
Obviously, if he was, meant to be teaching, I'd be like, no. But it was that sort of kindness as well that I liked being shown in front of the kids as well, like him coming in and asking if I wanted help as well. I think that was good for them to see. So yeah, that was quite nice of him to come in and be like, do you want me to teach? I was like, yes, please. Feel free to step into my shoes.
Yeah, and that's a nice thing to have, that even when you're far from your family, that there are people that are still willing to step in and kind of help you. Because sometimes there are people out there that unfortunately have absolutely nobody to step in at all, whether it's colleagues, friends, or family. And I just feel that by us talking about these things, it kind of makes them feel a little less alone, and that they need to not be afraid of reaching out if they need to.
Albeit there has been some interesting colleagues I've come across on the long way. Like there was the other one that was like, why are you only sorting it out now? And I'm like, I'm not sorting it out.
Yeah, there's always that, at least one or two.
Yeah, so, like I say, there's been some really nice colleagues, like the one that stepped in and taught my lesson for me. But then that have been like, what are you doing it? I'm like,
yeah, there's always that asshole, but we still have to find a way to reach out too, because there are other people that, are suffering in silence too. And, giving them that little, hey, I'm suffering and I need a little help, can kind of say, oh, well, I'm suffering too. And let's, band together, create your own family somehow so that we don't feel so alone in the world. And I feel like that's also why you created your page for Instagram, which we like, and that we're friends on with, that we're friends with you on.
Yeah, I mainly because I was thinking back to like obviously I'm the young age I am, but when I was in high school I had this really obviously I've mentioned my English teacher. She knew me from year 7, but when I was in year 10 I'd picked my GCSE options to take on for my exams. We had a swap of ICT teachers and computing teachers, and it wasn't till year 11 when I had a really bad flare up with the wrist, and I was like in and out of school that week because of pain. My mum told me that she'd bumped into my ICT teacher at the front of the reception, and my ICT teacher told my mum that she'd had the similar condition to me, and I was like, oh, because back in year 10, when I'd asked if I could write on the key, she was very much like one of those, like, it's better to handwrite to get it in to your brain for your GCSEs. But when I went to her, I was like, look, I need to type on the computer. And she said, okay, where every other teacher would question. I was like, there's something different about you. And like I say, back in when my mum went to pick me up from school one day and my IT teacher had told her about this, I was like, that makes sense. That's why she didn't question like every other teacher. And that meant me and her got a great relationship. Like, we were almost like, albeit, teacher pupil relationship, but it was like the strongest ever teacher pupil. Like, the kids, my friends would joke that, I was like a mini Mrs. surname, and like I was in sixth form, and, she'd let me go into year 7 lessons because she knew I'd want to be a teacher. So she was like, why don't you go to help in year 7 lessons when you're free and whatever. So she was very supportive. She was very, caring. She'd understood me from the off. I was just like, that's the person I want to be for other people. Like, I understand this pain. I understand there's not much research. I get it gets clobbered with other risk conditions. I get it's not spoken about. Like, there's literally minimal research out there. And if you do find research, it's the same repetitive research that you've found anyways. Like, there's nothing new about this. It's just the same old content. So I'm just like, if I can just show at least one person, like my IT teacher showed me, then I feel like I'm sort of not passing it down, but sort of helping people relate.
But that's important because of that helps. And even if it's not the exact same pain, just knowing that there's other people that unfortunately have chronic pain, and getting together and talking kind of alleviates a lot of the isolation that comes with having chronic pain. At least based on what I've searched in my own experience with it, that with the pain, just part of it is you don't feel like going out, you don't want to get all dolled up and dressed, and even though it is just my legs, but it's exhausting, and just trying to get out the door sometimes is very hard. And having somebody who understands that, even if it's a different body part, that I too understand that you're in pain, and I understand the fact that you're going to be tired, you might cancel, or you might need to change here and there, makes a huge difference. And it makes not only you feel better knowing that somebody else is out there and that you're not alone, but also the other person to feel better knowing that they're not alone. Because for me, there was quite a few years that I've been dealing with this since 2012, and having that, I kind of isolated myself from my current students at the time, and from other people, because I didn't quite know exactly what it was and how I would navigate this. And then finding this community on Instagram made a huge difference for me. I felt like, oh, I'm not alone. I'm not the only person. I mean, I knew in my head that I wasn't the only person, but it's different when you actually get to meet other people, and it's not just the abstract of, you're not alone.
So
for me though, like I I created my Instagram more for something to do that I could do from home, that I could sit in, bed and, be creative a little bit. Like, at the time I was a bit like, do I want to be teaching? Do I want to do something else? Do I want to go into something else? And I did media A level, so I was like, well, I can do graphics, I can sort of implement social media. I've done a bit of social media in other places. Like I did bits for my uni. I did bits for my like different societies and stuff. So I was like, maybe I could, I found it as a new creative outlet to implement my skills and be like, right, if I did want to leave teaching, I've got this outlet to be like, right, I've gone and built a social media portfolio. Here it is. But also something for me to do that I could just, instead of sat here just, debating life, I could go and, albeit, yes, it's just Canva graphics, but I do quite like playing around, seeing what I can make on the graphics, which is where the magazine came into idea. I was like, I wonder if I could, build my skills, make something creative for my mindset and my portfolio of little projects I'm making, to then sort of be like, actually, let's make this thing. And yeah, it's mostly for me to build my skills at the end of the day. But I didn't realise the community that was on that side of Instagram. Like, I've obviously got my personal one, but like a few years ago during COVID, I had like a bookstagram, so I've been on the book side of Instagram. I've had a teaching Instagram for being education. You don't realise the different corners of social media, even as a computing teacher. Like, there's the bad side of it, but you don't see the good side. You often don't talk about good sides of Instagram, social media, and you don't really realise how much community-based it can be.
Yeah. I didn't realize how community-based it was, because dating myself, but when it first started, like with just Facebook and MySpace out there, it really didn't feel very community. It was more so, oh, look at my accomplishments. And now it's nice to see that there are communities out there that you can be a part of. And like I said, not feel alone with that, whatever is, even if you're able-bodied, you can find a community that you can be a part of. But I love our community because we are fiercely loyal to each other.
Yeah, it's one of the best I've been a part of.
Yeah, I mean, out of all the different communities I've been a part of too, and because, we have intersectionality, we have different aspects of our lives. We're not just, writhing on the floor and, having to do the worm in order to get anywhere or something like that.
The worm, do you remember that?
Yes. And so we have different aspects of our lives, but it takes up so much when you have a chronic illness or a chronic disability, because it affects everything about you, whether or not you can get somewhere, or in your case, write something. And being able to have those outlets and have that community kind of helps push us along too. I mean, I admit that doing this was about kind of, selfishly amassing more friends and gaining a different type of family so that I wasn't alone.
I'm just trying to find my post that I put about my orthopedic appointment. I remember sort of ranting about the fact that, this was the first time that an MRI had been suggested, and they're like, the comments were like, "Oh," I was like, "You tell me, chronic pain community, why the hell this has happened." But at least you all like, there, sort of be like, actually, this is a bit weird, but. Thanks for the sort of confirmation that I didn't think it was. I was not the only one that thought it was a bit weird. But,
right.
And like my best friend Emma, I'll give her a little shout out herself. she has endometriosis, and she's a very big advocate for that. So I kind of took inspiration from her as well, because like she's been on like little panels and talks for her condition. So I was like, maybe I can sort of take my sort of knowledge of what she's doing from my condition as well, not to sort of compare, but know that she's doing incredible things for her condition. So I'm like, right, let's try and sort this out for
it's good. It's important that we understand even the diseases, illnesses, and disabilities that only affect maybe two people. We need to understand and know all of these so that we together can make it better for everybody, for us to be able to work and play or just relax like we need to, and have the knowledge and have the right medical expertise so that we're not becoming medical doctors ourselves just to get a medical doctor to listen and help us. Because I just don't see the point in becoming the doctor in order to help the doctor help you. And so
that's why when I was 16 and I'd gone and done research and I'd come across tendonitis and I was like, this is exactly what I'm feeling. And then he was like, I think that's what I diagnosed you when you were 12. I was like, well, thanks for telling me.
Unfortunately, we're running out of time here. You had mentioned endometriosis, and I noticed your first issue of your magazine was about that. So before we go, I wanted to give you a chance to kind of talk about the magazine, let people know how to find it, and just kind of promote yourself.
Yeah.
So I took endometriosis mainly because it inspired from my friend Emma as well, but also because of the British series over here called Waterloo Road. I just watched series 15 that's just come out, and there's a character in there that talks about endometriosis and chronic pain, and I was like, at least, albeit it's not my condition, but at least it's being represented in the media now. There was a line that she says where I'm like, every day I'm in some sort of pain, and it's just like, that is such like an overarching line for any type of pain. So I was like, I want to talk about this. I want to talk about media representation. Like I said, I did media A level. There's parts of me that thinks that I should probably do a media masters at some point because I just love like the sort of representations and media.
Yes, we definitely need that.
Yeah. So yeah, like I say, I've just watched this series that we have in UK, Waterloo Road. It's a high school drama based series, so it's very apt for like my sort of demographic, like the younger end of chronic pain. And I've done a post about it on my Instagram, and I was like, I want to make it bigger. I want to make it sort of a more spoken about thing. So that's why I was like, right, if I make this magazine, I can make it a full blown article, longer than Instagram would let you. So I was like, I wonder if I can start making a magazine. And like I say, I wanted to build up my skills for if I did want to leave teaching at one point. I've got something else to bounce off, and I've done social media, I've done magazine design for my media A levels and stuff. So yeah, I took endometriosis as my first topic because it's a big topic.
Yes, very big.
My friend Emma, suffers with it, so I've seen her with it, and the fact that it's now being spoken about in dramas and stuff. So I was like, right, this can be a good first feature article for the magazine. Sort of help me get the magazine out there before I start making another one. And yeah, it's done all right for the first edition. I've shared it on Instagram. I've put it on my LinkedIn as well, just to be like, hey, I'm doing something else as well as education. Hit me up with the jobs and stuff.
Yeah, I thought it was really neat and really informative. I thought it was great.
It was awesome reading that and being able to get even more information about it, because it's another one of those issues and diseases that just affects every part of your body from head to toe, and it's not talked enough about.
I mean, my friend Emma, bless her, she's had MRIs because it's going down her legs now. So they're like, is it like tendon damage for her down her legs? That sort of space. Is it affecting that? That's why I took it.
I'm glad you did.
I didn't want the magazine just to be about my condition, albeit, yes, that's one point of it. I want to get my condition out there, but I wanted it to be like an overarching thing. So it's just it's like the chronic painicles. I was trying chronicles, like the Chronicles of Narnia.
Yes.
I tried to make a little pun of it, but I don't know how well the title's gone down.
No, I like the title.
Yeah, I
got the pun. And I love that, though, about it, because, like I said, usually endometriosis, just briefly, is like, oh, it's just a woman's issue and everybody has pain when they go through puberty and it's not a big deal. But it is. It's a huge deal because it affects everything. And the answer isn't always, well, just get some birth control or just have a baby.
No, and that's why I'm, like I said, I keep referencing to my friend Emma, but, it's because she's got endometriosis, I've got this tendonitis, so we're like chronic pain friends, best, like we met through uni, but yeah, it's definitely something that's brought us closer. Like the fact that we both understand some sort of chronic pain. The
Yeah.
fact that, if we have to cancel on each other, we're good.
Yeah, we all
get it.
understand. Yeah, and that's the biggest thing too, is like having somebody that understands the fact that when you have chronic pain, that you can't always be there. When, especially during flares, that you can't show up all the time, and having people understand that biggest facet of chronic pain and chronic illness is so refreshing, and not having to explain.
I remember in August 2023, me and my friend Emma and my another friend of ours, we were going to go and see a concert in Liverpool, and she just got a date for a surgery to get, the surgery to get diagnosed, and she's like, oh, it's the day after the concert, so I can't stay over in the hotel afterwards. She was like, I can come to the concert, but I'm gonna have to go home afterwards because we planned to have the hotel in the night, to stay over and all that. I was like, oh, okay, at least it's not the day of the concert. At least,
That's good.
it's something to take your mind off beforehand. Yeah, so that was an interesting spanner in the works. Like, we planned the concert months ago, and then the typical NHS over here is the last minute everything. So she got the date through, and it so happened to be the day after the concert. I was like, okay.
At least it was
fine.
after. That's good.
But yeah, we are out of time, unfortunately.
Yes.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Yes,
This has been an absolute delight.
It is. It has been a great delight talking with you, and I hope that we get to talk to you again and tell us more about your condition and your magazine, and hopefully we can promote some more of that. I would love to see more
I'm
editions.
looking forward to the next edition.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. And we'll talk to you later.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
If you've made it this far, thank you so much for listening. Please leave a rating for us wherever you listen. Follow us on Instagram and TikTok.
Othering Podcast is brought to you by Loudcore Productions in conjunction with your support. Your host, Mike and Dory Morris, graphics by Joshua Morris, and join us next week on the Othering Podcast.